Hey friends, TJ and I are in the studio, and we're going to continue a series that we started last week on the Eastern Pennsylvania Annual Conference, and you probably know that from the show title. Before we get into it, just want to say we're coming up on 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that's pretty cool. So thanks to everybody for continuing to watch our stuff and share and subscribe. We're really excited and happy that other people like what we're doing. We enjoy it quite a bit too. So let's just continue to pray that this is a useful thing for people. As we're about to dive back in, it's important to reassert that the intent is not just to point out, hey, look at a dumpster fire. It's more kind of to digest what's going on inside of the United Methodist Church, but also for those that are coming out and going to the Global Methodist Church or other denominations or thinking about going independent. There's just a lot of arithmetic that needs to be done about what particular challenges and problems that we want to invite into our lives and in the lives of our churches. I don't think anyone would argue that banding together in something akin to conferences can be greatly beneficial for local churches. But depending on who you bind yourself together with, there can be a lot of fallout and a lot of suffering. So it seems to me and TJ, after watching, we went to YouTube and we found the live streams of 3 days of their proceedings, and we didn't watch every second, but we read Joe DiPaolo's article, Methodist Meltdown in Miniature, that was published on the 20th, where he kind of catalogs many of the things that he noticed that were really upsetting or disappointing about that time together. We already covered that Thursday. That was the first day, which was, let's see, it met on May 18th through 20th. So we already covered May 18th, kind of good. So if you haven't seen that, go back to that. We do a better job of setting up what was going on there. The long and short of it is there are a lot of pressures pertaining to, like, they were already shrinking before disaffiliation season started. Now they have a lawsuit of 50 churches banding together to try and bust their way out because the provisions for disaffiliation are not at all easy or fair, in my opinion. But it's just bad for morale. They have a lot of churches closing. They have a majority of their churches that by their standards are not vital or healthy. And the bishop is trying to facilitate a hard pivot with what I think they were calling a strategic plan, a hard pivot to make more of their churches vital and to, I don't know how much we'll talk about it today, to end racism. That is their reasonable goal. And it was just received as very heavy-handed. Bishop Schol has a lot of resentment from other people in his wake towards ways that he's been heavy-handed in the past. He gets a vision, he makes it happen. He seems to have come with this understanding to this conference as well. So we're going to be diving in on Friday in the way that Joe DiPaolo summed up Friday. He said things began badly during the opening business session. Setting the bar of the conference resulted in controlled chaos as the limits were changed several times and delegates moved chairs around to squeeze into the approved space. We watched that. It was very stressful, but we don't have a clip for you because it's just what you imagine. It's a prolonged period of let's move them here, and then who's there, and then there's a lot of concern for disabled people that couldn't be in certain spaces. Among the first resolutions was a sadly familiar one, the closure of 5 churches. What should have been a simple, if sad, decision was complicated when conference attorney Matt Morley offered an amendment from the floor that the, quote, annual conference supports and encourages the bishop, district superintendents, and district boards of church location to utilize paragraph 2549.3b. This is the notorious paragraph which allows bishops to declare exigent circumstances and use local courts to seize the assets of a local church, recently invoked by the Bishop of Eastern North Carolina to turn out the members of Wilmington's 5th Street United Methodist Church. We covered that on PlainSpoken. You should search 5th Street. Well, we might put it in the show notes if we remember. Delegate pushback eventually prompted the bishop to have the proposed amendment withdrawn and the closure resolution passed cleanly. And then the next morning, Schol apologized to the conference for complicated things admitting that he had been behind the amendment and explained that it would not apply to any disaffiliating churches or even the 50 engaged in a lawsuit to leave the conference. The amendment was put up on the screen as a standalone resolution. Schol called for a vote, despite the fact that there was no particular person or committee named as a sponsor. It had not been submitted into writing to the delegates beforehand, as conference rules require, nor had it been moved to the back of the line after all the previously submitted resolutions had been addressed. Okay, so that's what our first clip is going to be. So I think what happened was on Thursday, they had the opening business session, figured out where everybody was going to sit, proposed this resolution that came out of nowhere. And then what we're going to look at right now is Friday, when he's getting this pushback. All right, so here we go.
So, microphone 4, do you want to speak for or against?
Well, first of all, I'm a little confused because are we treating this as a new resolution or an amendment to the resolution we passed yesterday?
Well, what we passed yesterday did not have the amendment attached to it. It no longer has it attached to it.
So this is a new resolution?
It's a resolution from the standpoint that we've given it a resolution number so that it stands on its own and not attached to anything else.
So then I would first of all suggest that we haven't really had any speeches for or against this resolution at this point. There was some discussion of it as an amendment, but it may be a different point at this point.
The body can do what it likes, and so, we're going to work through this as the body would like. I've just said that there are 3 speeches that were made for it, 3 speeches, 1 speech that was made, 3 speeches made.
I wonder how
against,
often
1
he does
speech
this.
for,
The body can do as it
so we're
likes,
at that
and
point.
he just means
Okay.
himself.
Well, thanks for that clarification.
I'm the boss.
So then my
I'll do
next
as I want.
my primary concern is I think this is a violation of our rules. Article 8, number 2, states that resolutions shall be printed and distributed to members of the annual conference at least 10 days prior to the annual conference. These resolutions shall have a first priority upon the work of the annual conference. So I would suggest that this should be considered after all of the other resolutions have already been dealt with.
That's what DiPaolo was saying.
so
Was
we're
move it
gonna
to the
go
heel. Give
to the
preference to
rules.
those that have already been submitted properly.
And what rule are you referring to?
Article 8, resolutions on page 106, number 2.
And I get that some people aren't nerds, but if you're going to be officiating over a body, presiding over a body, and you don't know that body's rules.
Well, I've noticed that's what seems to be a common thing with these bishops. They don't really seem to know, like in Oklahoma, for example, Jimmy Nunn, he kept having to ask.
And then
constantly
there is
the-
Parliamentarian.
yeah, like, oh, what do we
apologize,
do
I'm
next? Like, what? And I'm
looking
like,
for the rule.
that's weird. How long have you been doing
Anybody
this?
can help me there?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and a lot of
misplaced my
people have
book.
said
What
over
is
the
it?
years, we just need to have a parliamentarian
Oh,
run
number
things
3.
rather than a bishop.
Right.
If we're looking at the bishop as the presider,
Resolutions
president,
received after the announced deadline
Here's-
or during
he's
the annual
reading.
conference session will be reviewed by the Agenda Committee. In consultation with the presiding bishop, this committee will determine which resolutions will be printed for distribution to the conference members. The Agenda Committee shall include the conference secretary, the chairperson of conference sessions, the executive director of Congregational Transformation Connectional Ministries, and the conference lay leader and the dean of the cabinet. Those persons met this morning. The legislation was sent out last night, and it was on the screen yesterday and also on the screen now.
Well, so first of all, that just says that the committee will determine whether it will be printed. It doesn't say that it would circumvent the first priority of the legislation that was already distributed 10 days prior. And also, I'm not sure that it's been printed and distributed to the body at this point.
they emailed it out the night before, but it didn't get out to everybody, as we'll see in a clip
Right.
from the following day.
But the Agenda Committee also has a responsibility for ordering the legislation.
Correct, which was done. We have it on agenda, and this isn't on it at this point. This is being inserted. I think, again, based on the rule number 2, item number 2, that this should have the previously printed resolutions distributed 10 days prior should have first priority.
All right, thank you. I see somebody coming to the microphone be, yes, Mark Young, microphone number 1.
Then
And
he just moves on.
That's where TJ cut it off. So yeah, you found that remarkable because of this next section where he just moves on and doesn't come back.
Oh,
To
yeah,
it,
it's
and
just
they-
it's this constant thing. If he's just like, oh, okay, well, we'll go to the next thing, and then just ignores it, and then calls a vote, and then they move on to the next thing. It's just like he says, well, the body can do what it wants, but it doesn't seem like the body's doing what it wants. Like he's getting pushback, and he doesn't agree with it, so he's like, I will just move on, and just moves on.
Yes, and this is something that held on. I found this document. What was it called? The issues raised by the United Methodists of the Eastern Pennsylvania response from the extended cabinet. This is something that they put out after the conference, where they talked about the strategic direction that was proposed and largely rebuffed by the annual conference. They talk about some financial stuff that I had not understood until reading this just a little bit ago. But the very last thing it addresses is criticism. A motion was presented on day 2 in the morning that lacked a sponsor and did not follow the process to be included. And the response is the motion presented was sponsored by the conference chancellor. He was the one who presented it. I was thinking that a sponsor is someone who doesn't present it, who's like, I like that, I sponsor, but maybe not. The agenda committee met. I think I'm wrong. Never mind. Take that out. The agenda committee met early on the morning of May 18th to approve adding the motion to the agenda as the first item of business to be considered by the annual conference, which is what he just said. I think if we had that other gentleman with us right now, he would say, you just can't do that. That violates the rules of the conference. There's also the actual proposal that we have here that got emailed out, which, as I said a moment ago, did not get to every delegate. And so it was never printed for some reason. I guess they're just biased against the olds who don't have digital know-how. But this was the language, which pretty much just says you can use paragraph 2549.3b. And we talked in the last episode about why they would want that to be adopted. It's to put future heavy-handed behavior on the annual conference, saying, "Hey, this is what they wanted. I'm doing it for them."
Yeah, you guys voted to do this, so we're just doing what you voted to do.
Exactly.
Just taking the blame off themselves is all it is.
Well, let's watch another clip. This one you have titled "We Don't Trust You."
Oh yeah, this guy. I don't.
Okay, sounds like it's going to be very measured.
Please, we won't,
thank you.
but you do need to give your name and church.
These are all in
Dave
chronological
Barna,
order.
New
Okay.
Hanover Methodist. I am a 4th-generation Methodist. I am a cradle Methodist.
Are you speaking against?
I am speaking against.
Okay, thank you. That's in order.
To be honest, we do not trust you or the district superintendent or the people that may follow you.
Good night.
You say that this would not be used in a harmful manner.
Oh, this is the same
I ask you,
resolution.
Bishop, you make
it's the same
that
one.
you make that statement, but yet within our United Methodist Church, our own judicial council has ruled that we have a bishop that was elected illegally,
He's talking about
but we
Oliveto.
haven't done anything about it. I understand that there are 28 annual conferences who have publicly declared that they would not follow the recommendations of the 2019
He's going nuclear.
General Conference.
Yep, he's right.
There are countless others. Within our disaffiliation process, we did run into roadblocks. Perhaps not intentional, but they were there. You asked us to give you $1 million to fund various functions within the annual conference. But as I understand it, the pension fund is fully funded. I don't understand that. When I went
Finances are a big deal
and
in this
started
conference.
Sunday school, I was taught the golden rule. I was taught that we would treat others like we would have others treat unto us. As I went through Sunday school in my 6th grade, I had a Sunday school teacher who introduced me to the writings of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I didn't understand it then, but I've read it since, and it has really affected my life. But I cannot trust the word of an organization that willfully allows people to take illegal actions and get applauded for it. That is not what the United Methodist Church is for. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a speech against. We've had 2 speeches for, 2 speeches against.
So he starts off personal, we don't trust you, but then it turns into an institution. We just can't trust an institution that allows for lawful the intentional disobedience and breaking of our rules. He speaks pretty clearly there, but it's the same diatribe that conservatives have been doing for, I don't know. When was Oliveto elected? 16?
I think it's 16.
Yeah, it's been 7 years. It hasn't been effective. Like, they just don't care. It's water off their backs. Like,
Yeah,
they're on
he
the
just-
side of right.
He just moved on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like, ah.
But the overall rhetorical point is you're asking us to give you authority. Okay, you asked us to give us money when I don't think you needed it. Now you're asking us to give you authority when you're not even using it to defend our discipline. So, no, I don't want to. Which, I mean, he doesn't even argue against it. Not that he could as presider, but I don't know. I mean, plenty of other times he stands up and he does his pastoral thing. I would think that that's something worth, if there's something worth saying there. But I think Schol all but acknowledges, yeah, that's my agenda.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is the body is ready for a vote.
Yeah, this is just him.
Speaking for the body again?
Yeah, speaking for the body, just pushing his agenda kind of thing.
Microphone number 5. We're in the midst of a vote.
I know we're in the midst of this vote, but I got
Name and
confused.
church. Name and church and person.
Timothy Fisher from Penargil Grace.
And your purpose.
I'm a little confused on the one amendment that was added, and I'm wondering if we could see the entirety of the resolution
A light
with
green
the
clerical
amendments
shirt.
that were added.
I don't know if
I
I've
don't
ever
know if
seen
we
such
can
a
see that. I think the body has indicated that they're ready to go to a vote.
It's not showing the language of the
They're feeling
amendment.
comfortable with what they know and what they see.
That's
So we'll
bananas.
move to a vote at this time. There it is there.
And I think that's just
That's
part
the
of it.
original
All who
resolution, but
support
not the
signify
amended
by
language.
saying aye and raising your hand. All opposed by the same sign.
Oh, and it's the same motion of giving
It
him.
carries.
Yeah.
Dude, that seems so crooked. That's almost,
Like, he's just trying to push everything through. It's not, it's,
he just railroaded it in.
yeah, it's exactly what he did.
That's so overt. Yeah, so he spends all this time on day one fostering like a time of listening, and anybody can say whatever they want,
Right.
and then he ramrods what he wants in.
And then he blames it on the body. He's like, well, the body wants this.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go ahead and do it. Like,
Man, I got
we're
to
in the
tell
middle
you,
of a vote.
I've been thinking since last week, and I've been kind of sympathizing with Schol. I'm like, man, he's got a declining annual conference. He needs to whip them into shape. They're being recalcitrant, you know. And then I'm watching this, and I don't feel any pity for him at all. What was
Yeah,
he
no.
thinking? Golly. All right, this one's called Please Ask a Question.
We're going to move now to the order of the day, the leadership report. Point of order number 6.
Yeah, I apologize for not yelling that sooner. Kevin Kresge, Martickville United Methodist Church, licensed local.
Woot woot.
I was
Licensed
not
local
here
pastors.
in party to yesterday as I was returning from Israel.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
You have a point of order, which means we're not following our rules.
Well, I was trying to make my point of order before we voted.
I understand, but tell me what rule we did not follow.
It's
vote?
not. It's a
So
question.
this
It's
is
the necessity
after
of
they
the
just
vote.
take that vote on the
The resolution giving extreme powers
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the
25.
exigent circumstances. So the vote we just now saw.
yeah. So this is right after that.
So he's saying, I was trying to get up here and do a point of order before
Mm-hmm.
you called the vote, and he did force that vote through pretty quick. Okay, so he's saying, I tried to get up here.
You made a statement earlier, Bishop, that and this is why I'm bringing this up. You made a statement earlier.
We're going back into debate.
Right, I'm not attempting to debate.
Okay.
I'm confused, and I'm just asking for some clarification.
All right, please ask your question.
Okay, so during your comments earlier,
Start with the question.
I'm trying to.
No, you're making a statement.
No, I'm really trying to ask a question.
All right, go ahead.
During your statements earlier, you mentioned that the two churches that I'm assuming that this resolution is in relation to had spoken that they had accepted the appointment of a pastor. Was that in the present before the determination or after? That exigent circumstances needed to be used, which would necessitate something like this?
What I said was that we had been working with the congregation. The congregation agreed to receive a pastor, but under the conditions that it would only be once a month, the first of the month. We told them that that would not be acceptable. They wrote back to us as of late yesterday or in the afternoon, late morning, and said they would abide.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you. I just needed that clarification.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now going to move to our leadership report, and I'm going to invite those who are giving the leadership report to come forward at this point. Microphone number 6.
Bishop, I respectfully request a written ballot on that motion.
Oh, we've already voted. We can't.
We've already voted.
And so you can't take a written ballot.
Very good.
I forgot about that part.
Wait, so the voting method, did he have them to raise their hands or just?
No, he had them raise their hands and say aye or, well,
and then he called the vote as a victory for him.
Yeah.
But then I've never had it happen that people contest if they got 50% and say, we're going to need a written ballot. And he doesn't even confer with the other people.
Yeah, no, he's like, oh, you've already voted and it passed. Sorry.
Man, this would put such a bad taste in my mouth if I was there. Yeah. I don't miss this. No part of me misses this. All right, this next clip is not ready for a vote yet, is what it's called.
Oh, so this is in the middle of the strategic plan. So we've got past all the other stuff. He's presenting the strategic plan, and he just got him and a couple other people, I guess, that were involved in it up on the stage in like a kind of group discussion thing, just talking about it. And this guy's tired of hearing it because they've been going on for like an hour. He's like, hey, can we vote on this? And
well, okay, so let me talk about the strategic plan a little bit, because this is the bishop's pivot. He's discerned, and I don't know that anybody's really pushing against him, that the conference is not doing well. They're in decline. So he, I don't know if it's a distinctly liberal. I mean, I think a lot of conservatives sign on to it now, but there's this belief that if you change policies, people change their actions to comply with policies. So like if you have a no smoking sign, then that means people don't smoke in those regions. So similarly, if you set goals, people are more incentivized to like meet those goals. So he wants to just set new goals for the conference that are ambitious. So I got this article, EPA considers future direction despite loss of some churches. This was put out before conference session. So it talks about some of the plan. Quote, one ambitious goal is to increase the percentage of vital congregations from 25 to 35%. By helping churches focus on 5 markers of vitality: worship, small groups, mission, stewardship, and making new disciples. That goal requires cultivating passionate disciples, vital congregations, and transformational leaders. The resolution reports progress in some of these markers, and among other specific priorities like ending the sin of racism and responding to missional opportunities, that progress included in a number of other regions. But additional strategic direction objectives, each with quantitative measures, call for the conference to create a culture of call to pastoral ministry, grow participation in a new curriculum, train facilitators to help congregations end the sin of racism, equip leaders to engage their congregations in interpersonal community outreach, equip leaders to lead their congregations to financial health by fostering generosity and sustainability in managing church resources, develop more diverse young leaders through camping, retreat, use the EPA's new regional structure to help superintending teams support clergy. So part of the new structure is that they didn't want to combine with Greater New Jersey, but they wanted to have, oh, heck, I forget what it's called. It's called I wrote it down here. No. An affiliation, I think, is what it's called. So they weren't trying to combine; they're trying to have an affiliated relationship with the New Jersey Annual Conference, and this was not received well at all. So there were a number of things where he's just kind of strong-arming the culture. And I don't, TJ, as I read through all of those different things, how much of that resembled something you would find in the Bible? Like, did that feel real biblical for you as we're talking about training people and coaches? And
No, it just sounds like some nonsense from a leadership class somebody took at a terrible college, is all it is. Like,
so this is what's
corporate
left
speak.
after you get rid of any kind of shared sense of what it means to who Jesus is, what a disciple is, what our mission is. If you've had long-standing disagreement about these things and you're just trying to move forward, then all you do is corporate speak, trainings, vitality, all this, because that's all that's left, and it's not going well. It's never gone well. It's worth remembering that ever since 1968, when the United Methodist Church was formed, it's been in decline every single year, and it's because we don't know what we stand for. So they're going to use words like discipleship, but unless you're clear on what a disciple is, that means nothing. So it's just, it's an impossible situation that for some reason people still think, oh, we're like, we haven't been doing it. We're going to send kids to camp. We're going to have a culture of call. Like, we've been talking about this for decades. I keep saying I'm not a part of it anymore. Y'all have been talking about it for decades. How's that going for you? It's almost like if you talk about anything other than the gospel in the gospel's place, it's going to be fruitless. All right, here's that clip.
Yeah, Dan Meter, North District, serving licensed local pastor for Jim Thorpe and Weatherly. Appreciate you guys putting all this information out there. You guys have been doing a great job of communicating out this to all the
he's talking about
districts
the
and
strategic
conferences
plan, right.
via email and letting them know what this is all about. Appreciate the panel being here today to answer all these questions. But I'm wondering if it'd be out of order to call the question.
Well, the motion hasn't been on the floor, but we get your point. So we'll go to microphone number 3 and then 1, and then we'll go to, I see number 6. So please try and keep it brief so we can get those last 3 in and then move toward the conversation legislation. Yes, microphone.
So it's more of, I mean, they're just up there and discussing the thing as a panel, and it's not officially a resolution before the body. So he's going to keep talking about it because that's what he wants to do. It's just the kind of, and to be fair, there were only 3 other questions after that before they actually got to the vote, but it was on his timetable. Need to make sure that all of you people understand this, and we've got it talked about. And he's talked about it as much as he wants before we move on, kind of thing.
Got to get it out of his system. Yeah, very good. Here's the next
We're
one.
going to go to microphone 5.
Just a couple
the
minutes
gentleman
later,
that
right?
was there earlier. Yes, that's right. You can come to microphone number 5. State your name and church, and just to make sure, what you need to do, if that's your desire, is to move to suspend the rules to move to a vote on the legislation. Okay, microphone number 5.
I'm not sure why they would have to suspend the rules.
You've called for the question. You just have to say, I move to suspend the rules to call the question. All right?
I move to suspend the rules to call to question.
All right, thank you. And that is, if you could give us your name and church, that would be helpful.
Dan Meter, North District, Jim Thorpe, Grace St. Paul's, and Centenary Weatherly.
All right, is there a second?
And then they took the vote. Did they take the vote right then?
Yeah, I believe so. So that was after the 3 or so people got up and asked their questions about the strategic plan, and then he calls him back up and said, "Oh, now you can ask for us to call the question, call it to a vote, whether they want to adopt the strategic plan or not."
All right, so here's what DiPaolo says. Also on Friday, a new strategic plan or direction was presented with Bishop Schol and plan formulators sitting in a row of chairs, talk show style, to discuss its importance for a full hour. When Delegate Dan Meter came out to the mic to call the question, the bishop explained that the plan was not yet properly before delegates as a motion. After 10 more minutes of questions and comments, Schol recalled Meter to make his motion, instructing him that calling the question required a suspension of the rules to move to a vote, even offering specific wording for the motion. It passed, and the bishop then called for a vote on the plan without debate. When the clergy delegate Robin Heinecke objected, Schol explained that having voted to suspend the rules, the required minimum tally of 3 speeches for and 3 against no longer applied. Schol could have counseled Meter to make a different motion or otherwise pause the process to allow people to be heard. Instead, he moved to a vote and the plan passed, though by no means unanimously. Heinecke complained that this did not jibe with the oft-repeated assertion of transparency on the part of conference leadership. So it does seem calculated when you watch it, like you see Van Meter or whatever his name, kind of balking, but the bishop supplied the language. Okay, if it gets us to call the question, let's do it.
Well, he specifically told him to
suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules,
yes.
When the rules would be you get 3 debates
exactly.
for and 3 against.
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't just calling the vote. It was calling the vote. So
like what you would want is this guy going, okay, wait, why do I have to suspend the rules?
Right.
What rules am I suspending? But he's just wanting to move on with it. It's an awkward moment. You can tell he feels awkward. And then the bishop knows what he wants to do. So suspend the rules.
Right.
I wonder if there's another way to interpret that where the bishop doesn't look quite so manipulative. I don't know enough about parliamentary procedure where he could be doing something else.
Yeah, it was just a weird thing to call for a suspension of the rules when it wasn't necessary at all.
I assume this one's related. This next clip is called "That's What Call the Question Means."
Yeah, I think it's just him being snippy with the person. Yeah.
Fisher, Penargil Grace.
This must be Heinecke.
The vote that we just took, it was my understanding that it's to call a question.
Yes?
That was the vote, was simply to call the question, not the vote on the actual matter before us.
Well, that's what call the question means. Microphone number 1.
And then just goes on to the next thing.
That's what call the... Okay. All right. All right, here's the final clip from day 2. Appeal to the Judicial Council. All right, this is going up above the bishop's head now. This is the only thing to be done whenever you don't like a conclusion that's reached at annual conference.
Timothy, my name is Timothy Fisher, Penargil Grace.
I didn't hear what your request was.
Okay, now I'll request that this be taken to the Jurisdictional Council for ruling on your ruling.
Okay. Are you asking for a decision of law? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. That you have every right to do that, and that will we'll follow our procedures and policies for questions of law. We're now going to go to the vote.
Okay.
Then just moves on again.
Yeah, so anytime you see, Schol he's an interesting person because he decides to camp out on some things a long time. And then other things that I would think interrupt the fabric of a good social environment at annual conference, he just goes right past. He doesn't say anything else about it. And it's just, everybody has different discernment, fine, but he really seems to invite this caricature of him as this kind of power-hungry, manipulative guy. Did you have any final thoughts on day 2? Because we can't fit day 3 into this one, I don't think so.
No, it just seemed like that whole day was just like him trying to push his agenda through. And I think we saw that in the clips. Like he's got something he wants done, and it's going to get done, and it doesn't matter how much pushback he's going to get. He's just going to roll right over him and go on.
Yeah. Well, I wish I'm feeling like there's supposed to be something I say on the strategic plan that he presented, and then the finance angle we could talk about on day 3 because day 3 ends with them not being able to pass a budget because, yeah, he's trying to radically change the culture with the strategic plan, and he has to radically change the finances because up until this year, they were not doing the finances in conformity with the Book of Discipline. I don't know the particulars of that, but they're very clear about that in their documentation. So the kids and I were watching this new series on Netflix called Our Planet, which is another nature show with David. I think it's David Attenborough, the British guy, and it's great. And they're following these elephants, and these elephants are in a place of extreme drought, and so they decide to migrate. But the place they migrate is full of humans and cities, and it's terrible. And they go for a full year, and they finally turn back, and they go back to where they were. And the drought has passed, and there's now water, and they can live more comfortably. And I forget exactly how he summed it up, but when conditions are uncomfortable, that's what causes people to move. And I think what happened in America is people started feeling the discomfort of rising liberalism that made traditional conservative theology problematic, and they said, "All right, well, let's move. Let's lose our moorings, leave our place where we've been, spreading scriptural holiness across the land, deep desire for personal holiness and biblical understandings of faith and life and anthropology and sin and all this. Let's migrate to a new place." But what we're finding is we're just leaving God's city and going into the city of man, and it's worse. Oh, it's so much worse. And it's full of CEO speak and this managerial class takeover, and it's dull and dead, and nobody even knows what these words mean anymore. And so my exhortation was, be like the good elephants and just go back. The drought wasn't real. There's anything wrong with our approach. And everything that's gone wrong since is because we left where we started. Our love has grown cold. We've forgotten our first love. If you're a good Methodist, go back to where you were. Be a good elephant. Watch Our Planet. It's a really good series. I don't know how they got all these clips. They have amazing footage on Our Planet. But even if you don't watch Our Planet, it's worth considering that the United Methodist Church is just lost if it continues to go in this same direction. TJ, anything else to say about any of that?
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, TJ and I don't know when we're going to film part 3. He's going up to Wisconsin for a wedding next week, so we're going to miss him. This week. Yeah, okay, right. So maybe next week we'll film it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, if you found this useful, go ahead and promote it, share it, send it, comment, do all that fun stuff. If you like what we do and you never are caught up, it's worth looking and making sure that you've hit the notification bell so that if we're doing a premiere or something like that, that you're getting an email about it. You can sign on and see. So, all right, I think that's all for now. I'll see you next time.